Thanks for tuning in to Podcasting for Financial Professionals. This is the third episode in the 2025 mini-series where I dig into the archives and pull out an impactful clip from some of my first guests on this show. Today, I'm unpacking something Tiffany Grant said about how podcasting is a great way to hone your public speaking skills and as credibility to get on more stages. I'm really excited to reveal how her advice in this clip applies to you in 2025, a year and a half after that original interview was recorded, and what implementing her advice might look like for you in your business. Hi, I'm Virginia Elder, host and owner of Podcast Abundance, the leading provider of audio and video production for financial service professionals. Here's Tiffany Grant, host of Money Talk with Tiff and owner of moneytalkwitht.com.
Podcasting really helps with thinking up things on the fly. My public speaking improved just because I'm able to interview people, get their thoughts, shoot them questions as we go. It helps with a lot of different things. With conversation, there's so many things. Like, people locally, they call me the networking queen now because I'm just so good at now networking and conversing with people, when prior to the podcast, that was not a thing really. So it's just helped me so many different ways personally in that regard, where it helps me get out of my shell. It helped me be able to improv more effectively. And then my public speaking has improved for sure.
One more thing on that note, how has having a podcast affected your business?
I will say 60 to 70% of people that find me mention that they've heard the podcast, or they heard of the podcast, or they heard me on another podcaster's podcast. Then they went to listen to mine, and then they reached out. So I would say 60 to 70% of my new clients or people that hear about me comes from podcasting now. A lot of people think social media is huge, and it depends on your business. But for me, podcasting and the website are two of the most popular ways people find me.
That episode left me with a renewed sense of community within the entrepreneurial space and a much needed reminder to practice self-care, revisit the whole meditation and mantra thing that I'd kind of forgotten, and just take better care of myself as a business owner, because that's how I'm best going to take care of business. For those of you watching on YouTube who might want Tiffany's entire interview, that full episode is linked above. Plus, for those of you listening, that episode is, of course, linked in the show notes. All right, so here are the 6 insights I heard in that clip and your inspired action step for each. Number 1, using every podcast episode as a confidence training session. Tiffany compares podcasting to improv, which I absolutely love. It's essentially a training ground where you build your own mental flexibility, quick thinking, and ability to read the room. She mentioned how her own confidence and speaking ability improved just from practice, just from hosting her show. It's kind of like forcing yourself into a networking event so you have no choice but to practice introducing yourself over and over again, except way less scary. And instead of being in person, you're behind the mic and you can edit out all your mistakes. Way less pressure. Here's how you put this in action. By treating each recording, whether you're a guest or a host, like a low-stakes rehearsal for bigger stages. Think webinars, keynotes, media interviews. Instead of worrying about being perfect, focus on building the reflexes that make you a stronger communicator over time. Work that muscle. Remember, it's a training session, just like a workout. All right, insight number 2. Interviewing is a masterclass in curiosity and connection. Tiffany mentions getting their thoughts, shooting them questions as we go, in quotes. She's describing the art of truly listening. It's not just about your planned questions, but it's about pivoting in real time to go deeper and follow the path where your guest is leading you. This hinges on what we talked about last week about how the worst shows feature canned, predictable questions. So, use your interviews as a playground just as much as a training session. Because if we draw a parallel between podcasting and working out, you only are going to stick with it if you're seeing progress and having fun. Here's how you take action. When preparing your episodes, especially your interviews, set an intention up front to follow the curiosity. Don't just follow the outline. Yes, an outline is important, but you want to be intentional about when something the guest says piques your interest, you follow that. This is a direct parallel to how financial professionals should approach client meetings. Listening first, then guiding. All right, insight number 3 is your voice builds your reputation. Tiffany says how she's now known locally as the networking queen. I love that for her. Podcasting helped her become recognizable, not just online, but in her own community. That has led to speaking gigs and invitations she might not have received otherwise. And trust me, she does a ton of media. Your actionable takeaway here is to use your podcast as a portfolio piece to actively pitch yourself for speaking opportunities. Here are a couple ways you can do that. You can add speaker or a media page to your website, showcasing your podcast, topics you speak on, past interviews, and especially past onstage or virtual summit style speaking engagements. You're going to just add to that page over time as you get more and more engagements and just keep it fresh and updated so it is truly a portfolio piece that you can send to an event organizer. Another tip here is to pull clips from your podcast episodes, especially moments where you're making a big impact with a strong opinion and really teaching and sharing your perspective. You can include those in your pitches for speaking engagements. That way, the event organizer or the on stage coordinator can get a feel for the way you speak and your passion behind your message. Another option here is to literally reach out one-to-one to local business groups, professional associations, or even event organizers with a short pitch email introducing yourself as a podcast host and position yourself as a thought leader using your podcast as backup and show them that you're ready to speak on your specialty or your niche topic. This entire actionable takeaway from insight number 3 does require bravery, and this last tip requires a bit of tech savviness, but at an event, let's say there's a, local real estate expo or something like that that would match with your niche, you can offer to host a live podcast episode at that event to showcase your expertise and build community connections. That will really build your authority within the community. You'll suddenly be known as that advisor with the podcast, for example. It's a great way to stand out at events. All right, so the next tip is especially important in 2025. Insight number 4, focus on the channels that truly work for you. Tiffany points out that 60 to 70% of her new clients come through podcasting, not social media. She's essentially describing the importance of doubling down on the highest ROI funnel that you have evidence is working. So, a couple keywords there: evidence and working. And I want you to do this, like double down on that high ROI funnel where you see evidence instead of spreading yourself thin everywhere. So, what do you do to make this happen in your business? You're going to evaluate, of course, step one, evaluate where your highest conversions are. What platform are they on? Which lead magnet is most downloaded? Which call to action gets the most people on your email list? This takes some digging and some research, but it is a worthwhile exercise. If the highest ROI piece is your podcast, invest more deeply, improve production, add bonus episodes, integrate a simpler, clearer call to action. A recent marketing study showed that the use of Instagram and Facebook are actually down over the past year, while the use of LinkedIn, Threads, and TikTok are up. So if you're feeling pressure around posting on Instagram, but you actually enjoy LinkedIn, make the move. Let go of the need to be omnipresent if some of those platforms don't move the needle. Double down on the platforms that do. All right, insight number 5: podcasting as a client pre-qualifier. She mentions that people show up already knowing her because they've listened to her for hours. We've heard this from someone else recently. So, bonus for you if you can email me and tell me who else said that. But basically, when people show up already thinking you're aligned, it's no longer just marketing, it's qualification. By the time they reach out, they are warm, aligned, and ready to convert. Here's your action step for this one: structure episodes to address client objections and highlight your values. So, if you are addressing objections in episodes, you're going to have fewer client objections during potential sales calls or discovery calls than you will otherwise, because they're already going to have heard that thought process and why that objection doesn't make sense. Make sure that they can still grasp your expertise and personality through those episodes, even when you have a guest on the show. When a prospect listens, though, they are pre-sold on your approach and personality before they ever book a call. That is the point of a podcast for business. And finally, insight number 6: personal growth translates into business growth. All her points, improv, speaking, networking, circle back to one theme: personal growth is business growth. I know you've heard that before, so don't check out, because I'm going to tell you how to grow and what to do to take advantage of this growth. By stepping up as a more confident, articulate communicator, Tiffany attracts more of the right clients and opportunities, and you can too. So here's what I want you to do: you're going to set a growth plan for yourself, just like an employer would, or just like you might for your own business. And here are a couple things to look at within your personal growth plan. After every 5 to 10 episodes or so, I want you to listen back and write down one skill that you've improved. Maybe it's better pacing. Maybe it's stronger guest questions. Maybe it's a more natural delivery. Whatever it is, I want you to have noticed one tiny thing, one skill that you've improved over your past 5 to 10 episodes. Another thing to look at is to choose one area to intentionally practice in your upcoming batch of episodes. So you might want to try using stronger hooks, telling a few personal stories, or guiding guests more confidently. All of these are really important muscles to tone, let's say. And so when you look forward and say, like, in my next batch of episodes, I'm going to work this muscle, and you're intentional about practicing that, you're going to improve it. Then you're going to share your podcast growth journey openly on LinkedIn or in your email list to build transparency and position yourself as a leader who evolves. We're all growing, but a lot of times we tend to hide the rough patches within our growth. And I want to encourage you to share it openly, share what you're doing, what your goals are, what skill you're intentionally practicing with your podcast. And I can guarantee you're going to get some interest in those posts. Now, finally, within that, I want you to regularly update your offers, your website, and your services to reflect your new level of confidence and authority. You might notice at some point that the language that is on your speaker page or on your Media One sheet needs to be adjusted because you've grown, you've been on more stages, you're more confident in your language, and you might even have new keywords that you're pursuing as you grow. So, this way, your business fully capitalizes on the personal growth that you're achieving behind the mic. That closes out the 6 insights and the action steps that belong with them, thanks to Tiffany. All of them, from your speaking confidence to landing guest spots and live event invites, are real, tangible business wins, much more so than your listener count or the number of followers on Instagram. But these opportunities only move the needle or even exist on your radar if you actually track them. That's why I created the podcast ROI tracker. It's available on my site. It's available in the show notes. You can use it to log every engagement opportunity, client inquiry, or connection that comes as a result of being a podcast host. Use this tracker and you'll start to see exactly how your personal growth behind the mic turns into tangible, measurable business growth with a dollar figure behind it. The link is in the show notes. Grab it today and start seeing the true value of your podcast in a beloved spreadsheet for us money nerds. Now that's a wrap for today's Minisode. A huge thank you to Tiffany for sharing her insights and reminding us that podcasting isn't just about putting content out there. It's about stepping up as a leader, building confidence, and creating real connections that move your business forward. You can find all of Tiffany's links, including where to follow her and listen to her full episode from 2024, right in the show notes. And don't forget, download that podcast ROI tracker. You need it. I've never seen anything else like it from any other creator, and it is so powerful. It is absolutely the perfect tool to help you assign a real value to all the growth and opportunities your podcast brings in, from speaking gigs to backlinks to longer engagement periods with your clients and a variety of other hidden but really, really valuable metrics. Thank you so much for spending your time with me today. I cannot wait to hear about the new doors your podcast opens for you now that you're tracking them. I'll see you next week.